Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Just a kind request to the guests coming in. If you're in the hallways, please do come. Please do come to the hall and have a seat. We're about to begin very promptly. Jazakumullah. May I please have everyone's attention? Please listen to these instructions carefully in case of an emergency. For your safety, Tahir Hall has 4 emergency exits along the main entrance doors. Please take a moment to now locate the nearest exit to you. If the fire alarm sounds, please remain calm and exit immediately using the closest safe door. Do not run or push, and follow instructions from event volunteers or safety staff. Please assist elderly persons, children, and anyone with disabilities once outside. Move away from the building and do not re-enter until it is declared safe. You can look at the screen now to reference the closest safe exit to you. Thank you for your cooperation. खिलाफत क्या है एक फज़ले अज़ीम रब रहमा है
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. واعتصموا بحبل الله جميعا ولا تفرقوا واذكروا نعمة الله عليكم إذ كنتم أعداء فألف بين قلوبكم فأصبحتم بنعمته إخوانا وكنتم على شفا حفرة من النار فأنقذكم منها كذلك يبين الله لكم آياته لعلكم تهتدون ولتكن منكم أمة يدعون إلى الخير ويأمرون بالمعروف وينهون عن المنكر وأولئك هم المفلحون ولا تكونوا كالذين تفرقوا واختلفوا ولا تكونوا كالذين تفرقوا واختلفوا من بعد ما جاءهم البينات وأولئك لهم عذاب عظيم. I will now present the English translation of the verses just recited from chapter 4 of the Holy Quran, verses 103 to 106. I seek refuge with Allah from Satan the rejected. In the name of Allah, the gracious, the most merciful. O ye who believe, fear Allah as He should be feared, and let not death overtake you except when you are in a state of submission. And hold fast altogether Allah which He bestowed upon you when you were enemies, and He united your hearts in love, so that by His grace you became as brothers. And you were on the brink of a pit of fire, and He saved you from it. Thus does Allah explain to you His commandments that you may be guided. And let there be among you a body of men who should invite to goodness and enjoin equity and forbid evil. And it is they who shall prosper. And be not like those who became divided and who disagreed among themselves after clear proofs had come to them. It is they for whom shall be a great punishment. ابھی تلاوت کی جانے والی آیات کریمہ اردو ترجمہ از حضرت خلیفۃ المسیح الرابع رحمہ اللہ پیش خدمت ہے۔ میں اللہ کی پناہ مانگتا ہوں دھتکارے ہوئے شیطان سے، اللہ کے نام کے ساتھ جو بے انتہا رحم کرنے والا، بن مانگے دینے والا اور بار بار رحم کرنے والا ہے۔ اے لوگو جو ایمان لائے ہو، اللہ کا ایسا تقوی اختیار کرو جیسا کہ اس کے تقوی کا حق ہے، اور ہرگز نہ مرو مگر اس حالت میں کہ تم پورے فرما بردار ہو، اور اللہ کی رسی کو سب کے سب مضبوطی سے پکڑ لو اور تفرقہ نہ کرو، اور اپنے اوپر اللہ کی نعمت کو یاد کرو کہ جب تم ایک دوسرے کے دشمن تھے تو اس نے تمہارے دلوں کو آپس میں باندھ دیا، اور پھر اس کی نعمت سے تم بھائی بھائی ہو گئے، اور تم آگ کے گڑھے کے کنارے پر کھڑے تھے تو اس نے تمہیں اس سے بچا لیا۔ اسی طرح اللہ تمہارے لیے اپنی آیات کھول کھول کر بیان کرتا ہے تاکہ شاید تم ہدایت پا جاؤ۔ اور چاہیے کہ تم میں سے ایک جماعت ہو، وہ بھلائی کی طرف بلاتے رہیں اور اچھی باتوں کی تعلیم دیں اور بری باتوں سے روکیں، اور یہی ہیں وہ جو کامیاب ہونے والے ہیں۔ اور ان لوگوں کی طرح نہ ہو جو الگ الگ ہو گئے اور انہوں نے اختلاف کیا بعد اس کے کہ ان کے پاس کھلے کھلے نشانات آ چکے تھے، اور یہی ہیں وہ جن کے لیے بڑا عذاب مقدر ہے۔ السلام علیکم۔
Assalamu alaikum. Just a kind reminder again that the chairs need to be vacated if any Hatfal and Khudam are sitting on them, because we have elderly who are unable to participate in our program because there are children and young Khudam sitting on these chairs. So please, if you absolutely do not need the chair, please vacate it. Jazakallah.
السلام علیکم ورحمۃ اللہ وبرکاتہ۔ خلافت ہے انعام آسمانی، خلافت ہی نظام معتبر ہے، خلافت ہے انعام آسمانی، خلافت ہی نظام معتبر ہے، خلافت سے کا غلبہ، خلافت سے مقدر دین کا غلبہ اسی کے ساتھ ہی فتح و ظفر ہے، اسی کے ساتھ ہی فتح و ظفر ہے۔ قیام امن کی یہی ہے ضامن، قیام امن کی یہی ہے ضامن، صحیفوں میں لکھی جس کی خبر ہے، صحیفوں میں لکھی جس کی خبر ہے، ولی پیرو مجدد ہے سارے، خلافت سب پہ حاوی بالاتر ہے، خلافت ہے درخت پاک ایسا کہ جس کی شاخ ہر ایک باثمر ہے، کہ جس کی شاخ ہر ایک باثمر ہے۔ درندوں بد بلاؤں کے مقابل خلافت عافیت کا ایک سپر ہے، ہمیں منزل پہ منزل مل رہی ہے، خلافت جو ہماری راہبر ہے، خلافت جو ہماری راہبر ہے، خلافت کے جو نعرے گونجتے ہیں اب ان کی بازگشت ہر ایک نگر ہے، اب ان کی بازگشت ہر ایک نگر ہے، خلافت قائم و دائم رہے گی، خلافت قائم و دائم رہے گی، महफूज तर है क़यामत तक ये अब महफूज तर है खिलाफत है इनाम आसमानी खिलाफत ही निज़ाम मोतबर है खिलाफत है इनाम आसमानी खिलाफत ही निज़ाम मोतबर है. The English rendering of the poetry that you just listened to is as follows. Khilafat is a divine reward. Khilafat alone is the institution we can rely on. The victory of faith is destined with Khilafat. With it comes success and prosperity. Khilafat alone guarantees the establishment of peace. This is what is written in the revealed scriptures. Saints, spiritual guides, and reformers are of no significance. Khilafat is loftier and stands above them all. Khilafat is like a pure and blessed tree. Each of its branches bears fruit. Against beasts and evil calamities, Khilafat is a shield of security and protection. We are reaching destination after destination, for Khilafat is our guide along the way. The slogans of Khilafat that resound now echo through every city. Khilafat will remain established and enduring until the day of judgment. Khilafat stands ever more secure. Khilafat is a divine reward. Khilafat alone is the institution we can rely on. Jazakumullah ahsan al-jaza.
Imagine one day you suddenly lose your house, the roof over your head, your family disappears, the one who protects you is nowhere to be found. Essentially, you lose the peace and tranquility you once had. How would you feel? That is exactly how the entire Jamaat was feeling in 1908 when the promised Messiah ﷺ passed away. The future seemed unpredictable. Fear overcame everyone. But there was a great unseen power at work. And this power had been with the community all along. This was the beginning of the second manifestation of Allah's power, the beginning of a transformation from fear to peace. A seeker of knowledge from Behira, Hazrat Maulvi Hakim Nuruddin radiallahu anhu was a royal physician, eminent scholar, one who had traveled the lands of India and Arabia in pursuit of knowledge and gathered hundreds of thousands of books in his personal library. This was the first Khalifa of the Ahmadiyya community, one of the greatest scholars the Islamic world had ever seen. His trust in Allah unparalleled. He steadied the ship of Ahmadiyyat after the demise of their beloved leader by affirming the institution of Khilafat, consolidating internal conflicts, establishing schools and newspapers, and even expanding the community to the west in his 6-year tenure as Khalifa. His moral character soared through the spiritual skies, and that's why the promised Messiah alayhi salam, in respect to him, said,
is a very powerful force. Confidence gives us hope, and it gives us certainty. When Hazrat Hakim Maulvi Nuruddin Sahib Radiallahu Anhu became a student, he went in search for a teacher. He was looking for a religious teacher who would make him his disciple. And while he was traveling, he was young, very young. While he was traveling, he ran out of money. And he hadn't eaten for 3 days. Barely ate anything. So he comes across a village, and it's Maghrib time. He sees the village, he goes there, it's almost time for namaz. And he goes to offer namaz. And right after namaz, everyone leaves. No one even talks to him. So Hazrat Hakim Maulvi Nuruddin Sahib Radiallahu Anhu sat on the side, and he's distressed. And he's just sitting there when he heard a voice say, Nuruddin, Nuruddin, come grab this food. And Hazur got up, went to the door of the mosque, opened it, found a tray of food. He picks it up, brings it inside, eats it, and then he leaves the utensils on the side, and then continues his journey. After about 8 days or so, he comes back to the same village, and he sees that the utensils are there. And he was confident that it was Allah who fed him. Now moving on, Hazur went to Saudi Arabia, and he goes to Mecca and Medina in search of a teacher to further his religious studies. So he goes to Medina, and one time when he was in Medina, he was doing something, he lost track of time. And because of that, he missed Zohar prayer in congregation. And he goes to the mosque, and people are coming up because namaz has ended. And Hazur was so disturbed, that he could not step inside the mosque. And he was shaking and crying that I missed namaz in congregation. And then he saw a verse of the Quran that was written on the door of the mosque. It said, O my servants who have transgressed against their souls, do not despair from the mercy of Allah, for He is forgiving and merciful. So Hazur says, when I read that, I calmed down a bit. But yet, when I entered the mosque, I prayed to God that, oh God, forgive this fault of mine. He didn't miss namaz. It was namaz in congregation. And for him, it was a huge sin that he had committed. But the faith he had, he kept praying to God. Now, after Saudi Arabia, after he finished his studies there, he became, he became an intellect. And then he goes back to his hometown in Beira. He goes back to his hometown and he starts a clinic. And while he's there, he quickly develops this reputation of being a renowned scholar and a very pious individual. Again, he's young. So all the other Maulvis of the area, they became jealous of him. They were extremely upset that this person is smarter than us and he's more pious than us. And they would try to debate with him over small matters, but they couldn't defeat him. So what they did was, they came up with a plan to kill him. And they started to incite the members of the town, the people of the town, to kill Hazrat Hakim Mauli Nuruddin Sahib radhiyallahu anhu. And they incited his foster brother, his Razai Bhai. And his foster brother was like, I will stab Nuruddin and kill him. Now when Hazrat Hakim Mauli Nuruddin Sahib radhiyallahu anhu found out about this, he was so confident that God would not let anything happen, that night he went to his foster brother's house. And he stayed the night there, waiting for him to kill him. But he knew he would not. So when half of the night had passed, he started to go back to his own house. But he asked his foster brother to come with him. And his foster brother was actually scared. So anyways, they started walking back to Hazur's house. And Hazur's walking in the front while his foster brother is behind him. And the whole time, Hazur wanted to see if his own foster brother would stab him. But he couldn't do it. And again, Khalifa Awwal radhiyallahu anhu had immense confidence in Allah. After Beira, in 1877, Hazrat Hakim Mauli Nuruddin Sahib radhiyallahu anhu, he got appointed as the royal physician to the Maharaja of Jammu. So he goes there. And he's making 1,500 Indian rupees per month, which in nowadays value is 18,000 USD per month. This is how much he was making. But Hazur would spend most of his money on helping the poor, the needy, and collecting books. And people used to tell him that, look, you need to save money. You need to save for rainy days. In 1892, he was let go from his position. So he comes home and he's packing his belongings to go to Qadian now. And a friend of his or an acquaintance came to him and said that, look, I used to tell you to save up. You never did. And right when this conversation was happening, a person from the palace of the Maharaja came and he brought a lot of cash. And he's like, the queen has sent this for you. And his friend, he got really annoyed. Hazrat Hakim Mauli Nuruddin Sahib radhiyallahu anhu used to often say that my friends tell me that I should save up as I have young kids. And if I die, if something was to happen to me, who would take care of them? And Hazur says, I respond. And this is something for all of us who serve the faith of Allah. Hazur says, I respond. God is living. He's not dead. He is all-knowing. If I serve Him, if I serve His religion, will He leave my family? So much trust he had. Whenever he needed money, somehow he would get money right at that time. This is how much confidence he had in Allah. Another instance shows that one time, Hazrat Sheikh Yaqub Ali Irfani Sahib radhiyallahu anhu, he mentioned that Hazrat Masih Maud alayhi salatu wasalam sent a message. Hazur was in Gurdaspur. He sent a message that Sheikh Sahib, you and Maulvi Nuruddin Sahib should come to Gurdaspur immediately. So Sheikh Sahib says that, we were in a hurry. We packed our bags, and we left. And our first stop was Batala. And then Sheikh Sahib says that, suddenly it hit me that I didn't pack any food. And then he's like, another thought came onto me where he's like, I remember that Hazrat Hakim Maulvi Nuruddin Sahib radhiyallahu anhu, he used to say that even if I'm in a jungle alone, even then God will provide for me. So Sheikh Sahib, that thought came to his mind. Then he said, let's see how God provides for Maulvi Nuruddin today. So they go to Batala. It's late afternoon, they're hungry. And as they're resting, there's a knock on the door. And a person says, is Nuruddin there? And Hazur says, yes. He's like, I'm going to send my servants with food. So their lunch was taken care of. Then in the evening, they had to go to Gurdaspur, they had to take a train. And their train was at 10 o'clock at night. So they went to the train station, and again, Sheikh Sahib gets hungry, and they're there. So Sheikh Sahib starts to just unpack his bags, unpack a few things. And as he was unpacking his bag, fresh food came out of his bag. And he was shocked. And he's like, I didn't pack this. So he turned to Hazrat Khalifat al-Masih al-Awwal radhiyallahu anhu. And he's like, when we left this morning, I thought to myself that, we forgot to pack food. But then I remembered that you had said that even if you're in a jungle alone, God will provide for you. So then Sheikh Sahib's like, I thought to myself that, let's see how does God provide for Nuruddin. Upon hearing this, Khalifa Awwal radhiyallahu anhu says, Sheikh Sahib, Khuda ko azmaya mat karo. Do not test God. Usse daro, fear Him. Uska mere saath khas taalluk hai. I have a very special relationship with Him. The confidence he had. During his last days, in the last 10 days, Hazrat Khalifa Masih al-Awwal radhiyallahu anhu said something extremely powerful. Something that we can adapt in our lives. Hazur said, if you're ever in trouble, he said, if you're ever in trouble, then go and pray to God that, O God of Nuruddin, just like you helped Nuruddin, help me and assist me as well. And then Hazur says, I am confident my God will come for you.
Stories have ups and downs, and the Jamaat had seen the worst of the storm with the demise of the promised Messiah ﷺ. The promise of God to establish Khilafat was fulfilled, and the Jamaat found its peace and tranquility again. However, divinely established communities face many trials, and after faithfully serving the mission of the promised Messiah ﷺ for 6 years, Hazrat Khalifatul Masih I radiallahu anhu, passed away in 1914. This was a particularly difficult time for the Jamaat, not just because it had lost its shepherd, but because a small group of people from within the community sought to tear it apart. The Jamaat needed a leader who could guide them through the ordeal and protect them. Someone who would prioritize the mission of the promised Messiah al-Islam in every circumstance and situation. That is exactly what God bestowed upon the Jamaat. This is how another promise of God was fulfilled. A true revolutionary with unbreakable resolve was granted the mantle of Khilafat. Hazrat Mirza Bashiruddin Mahmud Ahmad radiallahu anhu was selected by God Almighty as the second Khalifa of the community in 1914. He would lead the community until 1965 for 52 years. 52 years was the length this remarkable leader led his community. This was also the number of distinct qualities mentioned in the prophecy of Muslih Ma'ud. But the achievements of the community witnessed in the era of the second Khalifa cannot be summed up in mere numbers or narrated in any forum. The impact this great Khalifa had on his community, as well as Islam in general, will be felt and realized for centuries to come. From establishing the four main auxiliaries of the community, Majlis Ansarullah, Majlis Khudamul Ahmadiyya, Lajna Imaila, and Majlis Atfalul Ahmadiyya, to establishing the Nazarat of Sadr Anjuman Ahmadiyya, spreading the message of Ahmadiyya to over 200 countries, countless literary contributions to the Holy Quran, and addresses on a range of topics, establishing Tehreek-e-Jadid and Waqf-e-Jadid. This promised son of the promised Messiah alayhi salam even contributed to the establishment of the state of Pakistan.
जब हज़रत मसीह मौऊद अलैहिस्सलाम फौत हुए उस वक़्त उस डॉक्टर की ये बात सुनकर कि अब अहमदियत में कौन रह सकता है, मैं हज़रत मसीह मौऊद अलैहिस्सलाम की सराहना खड़ा हुआ और मेरे दिल में उसको जोश उठा और मैंने कहा कि ऐ खुदा, मुझे यकीन है कि मसीह मौऊद सच्चा था, अब ये फौत हो गया है और अब बज़ाहिर इसके मिशन और इसकी तालीम का हिफाजत करने वाला कोई नहीं, मैं बच्चा हूँ, पर ए मेरे खुदा, मैं तेरी कसम खा के कहता हूँ कि अगर सारी दुनिया ने इसे मुंह मोड़ लिया तो मैं इसे मुंह नहीं मोड़ूंगा और मैं उस वक्त तक चैन नहीं लूंगा जब तक सारी दुनिया को इसके कदमों में लाकर नहीं डाला।
The list of his feats is truly outstanding, leaving one astonished at how an individual accomplished so much in his lifetime. In 1944, Hazrat Khalifatul Masih II radiyallahu anhu claimed to be Al-Muslih Al-Ma'ud, the reformer foretold to the promised Messiah alayhi salam.
When Hazrat Muslim Maud Anhu was a young student, one of his teachers asked him a question. He said, Mia, your father, the promised Messiah ﷺ, receives revelations in abundance. Do you also receive revelations or see dreams? And the reply of the young Mia Mahmud Sahib was that I have seen many dreams. But there is one particular dream that I see nearly every single night. From the moment that my head touches the pillow to the moment that I wake up, I see that I'm leading an army, crossing vast oceans to fight an adversary. And sometimes when I find that I have nothing to cross the ocean with, I start to build a boat so I can cross that ocean to fight the enemy. His teacher, Hazrat Sayyid Sarwar Shah Sahib, he says that when I heard of these dreams, I knew that this young boy would one day lead the Jamaat. And from that day forward, I sat him in the teacher's chair while I would sit in his chair, and that is how I would teach him. My dear brothers, the legacy of Hazrat Muslim Maud Rizlatullah Anhu began even prior to his birth, foretold through Peshgoi Muslim Maud. And this legacy continued on in his youth through quiet moments of devotion, when his heart surrendered before Allah the Almighty, when nobody else was looking. Hazrat Shaykh Ghulam Ahmad Sahib Wais Rizlatullah Anhu, he says that one night I resolved that tonight I'm going to spend the entire night in the mosque, in solitude, in worship. He says that when I reached Masjid Mubarak, I saw that somebody else was already there, in sajda. And whoever it was, he was praying so profusely that when I started my own prayer, the only thing that I could pray for was, "Oh Allah, whatever this person is seeking from you, please grant it to him." And he says that I waited and waited to see who this person was, and I got tired of waiting. And when he finally raised his head from sajda, I saw that it was the young Mian Mahmud Sahib, Hazrat Muslim Maud Rizlatullah Anhu. He says, I met him afterwards and I said, "Mian, what did you take from Allah Ta'ala tonight?" And he said, "I asked Allah for only one thing. I prayed, "Oh Allah, make your faith alive through my eyes." Hazrat Muslim Maud Rizlatullah Anhu received his first revelation when he was 17 years old. Allah the Almighty revealed to him that إِنَّ الَّذِينَ اتَّبَعُوكَ فَوْقَ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا إِلَى يَوْمِ الْقِيَامَةِ, that verily those who follow you, they will be made victorious over those who reject you until the day of judgment. My dear brothers, the legacy and the life of Hazrat Muslim Maud Rizlatullah Anhu is a life that was filled with the undeniable grace and mercy and divine assistance of Allah the Almighty. It was a life where prayers were heard and miracles were shown. When Hazrat Muslim Maud Rizlatullah Anhu used to pray for people, the sick used to be healed. People would say that Hazur prayed for our eye that got infected, and now we can see better from this eye than the other one. Through the prayers of Hazrat Muslim Maud Rizlatullah Anhu, a river that was destroying crops, it changed its course and began to recede. Once Hazrat Muslim Maud Rizlatullah Anhu was informed that a certain person had died. His family was distraught. But Allah the Almighty informed Hazur that very same night that he was actually alive. And it was actually true, he was alive. People would say that Allah the Almighty loves Hazrat Muslim Maud Rizlatullah Anhu. Those who would be in his company, they would see that when he would be on a journey and they would fear that the blistering heat would have a negative impact on Hazur's health, suddenly a patch of cloud would come in front of the sun, granting him shade. My dear brothers, one person narrates that one evening, following the evening prayers, Hazrat Muslim Maud Rizlatullah Anhu was sitting on the prayer mat. And he says, I was looking directly at Hazrat Muslim Maud Rizlatullah Anhu when suddenly I saw a vision. He says that I saw that Hazrat Masih Maud ﷺ appeared, and he was directly behind Hazrat Muslim Maud Rizlatullah Anhu. And they both came so close together that they merged into one, like a sword fits into its sheath. During the time of Hazrat Muslim Maud Rizlatullah Anhu, there was a young boy who was a student. Doctors had told him that his leg had become infected and it needed to be amputated. Everybody had lost hope, even his own father. But he wrote a letter to Hazrat Muslim Maud Rizlatullah Anhu. He said that in the time of the promised Messiah, ﷺ, there was a young boy who was also a student. He contracted rabies, which is an incurable disease. And through the prayers of the promised Messiah, ﷺ, he was miraculously cured. So he said, I am also a student. And you are the promised son of the promised Messiah, alayhi salatu wasalam. So I'm pleading with you, please pray that my leg can be saved. What kind of a life am I going to live? And Hazrat Muslim Maud radhiyallahu anhu told him to come to Qadian. And he prayed for him. And despite what the doctor said, and despite the fact that even his own father had lost hope, he was miraculously cured. And his leg didn't need to be amputated. गैर मुमकिन को ये मुमकिन में बदल देती है ऐ मेरे फलसफियों ज़ोर दुआ देखो तो. My dear brothers, during World War II, Hazrat Muslim Maud radhiyallahu anhu saw a dream. He saw that he had been entrusted by the British government to defend England during the war. So he took an assessment of the military compound. He looked at everything that they had and he said that all I need are airplanes. And if you give me airplanes, then I can defend England very well. And within the dream, somebody came up to Hazrat Muslim Maud radhiyallahu anhu and he handed him a telegram. And the telegram said that the US had delivered 2,800 airplanes to the British. So Hazrat Muslim Maud radhiyallahu anhu narrated this dream to Hazrat Chaudhry Sarjarullah Khan Sahib, who then passed it on and shared it with several British representatives. There were many non-Muslims and non-Ahmadis who knew about this dream. Hazrat Muslim Maud radhiyallahu anhu says that about a month later, I was sitting in the mosque when somebody came running to me frantically. They said, Huzur, you have an urgent phone call. And he says, when I picked up the phone, it was Chaudhry Zafrullah Khan Sahib. And his voice was trembling. And he said that Chaudhry Sahib was a man of great confidence and courage. But at that moment, there was a quiver in his voice. He said, Huzur, have you read the latest news? And Hazrat Muslim Maud radhiyallahu anhu, he said that I had read that morning's newspaper, but nothing in particular stood out. He said, no, Huzur, your dream, the 2,800 airplanes, it has come true. My dear brothers, I went through old newspaper archives to show you just for today's program what the newspaper headlines said 1 month after Hazrat Muslim Maud radhiyallahu anhu saw this dream. And you can see it on the screen. 2,800 US planes delivered. You tell me, who could orchestrate something like this? Aql ko deen pe hakim na banao hargiz. Ye to khud andhi hai, gar nayyar ilham na ho. Hazrat Muslim Maud radhiyallahu anhu, he says that do not give precedence, do not make your intellect a master over your faith. And this is for our Khuddam brothers to understand. Do not make your intellect the master over your faith. The intellect itself is blind if it is bereft of the light of revelation. My dear brothers, the visions, dreams, answered prayers of Hazrat Muslim Maud radhiyallahu anhu, these were not a secret to people who were living at that time. There are scores of people who were witness to all of this. But the purpose of Hazrat Muslim Maud radhiyallahu anhu was to show the people that all of this was because of his divine connection to the heavens. Hazrat Khairuddin Sahib radhiyallahu anhu, he says that once it was shown to me, either in a dream or a vision, he says, I saw Hazrat Muslim Maud radhiyallahu anhu. He was standing on top of a wall and he was facing west and there were tears flowing down his face. And I said, Huzur, you are crying? Huzur, why do you cry? And Hazrat Muslim Maud radhiyallahu anhu replied and said that is waaste rota hoon कि लोग मुझे माबूद ना बना ले. I'm crying so that people don't take me to be a god. My dear brothers, beyond the dreams, visions, and answered prayers, there was a deeper, more quieter miracle that manifested itself through the life and character of Hazrat Muslim Maud radhiyallahu anhu. And this miracle was his infinite and boundless love for the members of the Jamaat, for the youth such as yourselves. Hazrat Muslim Maud radhiyallahu anhu used to keep letters from the members of the Jamaat tucked underneath his pillow, where they were safe and secure and closest to him. His children who had lost their mothers, they would say that Huzur never even let us feel the absence of our mothers. He had filled their little hearts with so much love that it was equivalent to the love of a mother and father both. People would say that Allah the Almighty loves Hazrat Muslim Maud Rizlatullah anhu. One of his sons narrates an interesting incident. He says that when we were children, we were once playing outside of the house, and there were other children playing with us. And one of them was a little orphan girl. And he says that we were children, so when we were playing, she said something that made me angry. And he was a child, he didn't have command over his emotions. So he says that we were playing, she said something that angered me, so I slapped her across the face. And he says at that very moment, Hazrat Muslim Maud Rizlatullah anhu walked in. And he saw what I had done, he was shocked. So he called me over, stand right over here. And he called over the little girl. And he said, he slapped you? Slap him back. But the little girl, she was timid. She didn't react. So his son says that my father, Hazrat Muslim Maud Rizlatullah anhu, he looked into my eyes and he said that, do you think that just because she doesn't have a father, that you can do whatever you want with her? Remember, I am her father. And if you ever raise your hand on her ever again, then I will punish you severely. My dear brothers, even those people who had nobody, they knew that they had Hazrat Muslim Maud Rizlatullah anhu. Whenever the Jamaat was experiencing a particularly turbulent and trying time, who do you think is impacted the most? Khalifa-e-Waqt. In such times, Hazrat Muslim Maud Rizlatullah anhu, he would stop sleeping in his own bed. He would sleep on the floor. And he would not return to his bed until and unless Allah the Almighty informed him that these days were nearing their end. He would feel the soft touch of a twig and a charming voice he would hear telling him to go and get some rest finally. It's recorded that Hazrat Muslim Maud Rizlatullah anhu would work on average 17 to 18 hours a day and up to 21 hours a day taking care of the affairs of the Jamaat and the members of the Jamaat themselves. Qaum Ahmed jaag, tu bhi jaag uske waaste. Unginat raatein jo tere dard mein soya nahi. In 1940, several members of the Jamaat, they saw dreams that Hazrat Muslim Maud Rizlatullah anhu's life was nearing its end. And the members of the Jamaat, they fell into sajda. They pleaded with God Almighty. They fasted. And Hazrat Muslim Maud Rizlatullah anhu was informed that his life had been extended. He would live for 25 more years after that time. But one night, he went home and he was awfully quiet. And his wife asked him that, what is the matter? What happened? And Hazrat Muslim Maud Rizlatullah anhu, he said that I wanted to return to my beloved Creator, but you people didn't let me do so. Hazrat Muslim Maud Rizlatullah anhu passed away on November 8th, 1965. My dear brothers, the legacy of Hazrat Muslim Maud Rizlatullah anhu is not something that merely lives in the past. It lives and thrives through the Jamaat to this very day, through you, the youth. 88 years ago in 1938, Hazrat Muslim Maud Rizlatullah anhu established Majlis Khudam al-Ahmadiyya, the backbone of the Jamaat. And we are all gathered here today as Khudam, celebrating Khilafat-e-Ahmadiyya because of Hazrat Muslim Maud Rizlatullah anhu. So let us never forget that in the Khudam pledge, all of us, we promise that I will always offer any sacrifice for guarding the institution of Khilafat-e-Ahmadiyya. एक वक्त आएगा कि कहेंगे तमाम लोग मिल्लत के इस फिदाई पे रहमत खुदा करे.
Under the wings of the second Khalifa, the Jamaat settled and thrived in a new land, far away from the streets of Qadian that were once home to the Messiah. Growing rapidly, the Jamaat was well established in its new headquarters in Rabwa, Pakistan. After the demise of Hazrat Khalifatul Masih II radiyallahu anhu in 1965, God selected his son, Hazrat Mirza Nasir Ahmad rahimahullah to be the next successor of the promised Messiah alayhi salam. The third Khalifa rahimahullah memorized the Holy Quran at a very young age, then went on to study at the prestigious Oxford University in England, acquiring tremendous knowledge. Naturally, he also spent an abundant amount of time with the second Khalifa and was spiritually polished under the watch of Hazrat Muslih Maud radiyallahu anhu himself. All this led him to usher in a new era for the Jamaat, its further expansion into Africa and other nations, where he brightened the world, not just with his beautiful smile, but by prioritizing the well-being of humanity in every corner of the world. The Fazl-e Umar Foundation and Nusrat Jahan scheme are just some of the feats achieved under his tenure. But the greatest ordeal came in 1974, when a brutal regime declared Ahmadis a non-Muslim minority in Pakistan, and members of the community were subject to severe persecution across the country. He wisely guided the community through this difficult time, both spiritually as well as legally, and despite the onslaught of torment and state-sponsored persecution, he coined the timeless phrase, love for all, hatred for none.
In the late 1970s, in a small village of Pakistan, there lived a man named Muhammad Yar Khan Sahib, who used to teach people, especially the children, the Holy Quran. And while teaching them, he started praying that, "Oh Allah, I know you're there, and I know that you speak to people, as you have spoken to the Holy Prophet ﷺ, and that's how the Holy Quran was revealed. But I want you to speak to me also." And he kept on praying this for a very long time, till one day he received an answer from Allah the Almighty. Allah said, "Anal Majud, I am here." Then Muhammad Yar Khan Sahib prayed that, "Oh Allah, now that that initial relationship has been established, I want to request that we should have this relationship forever." And then God revealed to him that if this is what you want, that in kunta abdi, if you want to become my servant, fa izhab ila abdi, go and meet my servant. Ismahu Nasir fa fi Rabba. That if you want to become my servant, go and meet my servant. His name is Nasir and he lives in Rabba. And finally, when he reached Rabba, he met Hazrat Misi Salih Rahmahullah. He narrated the whole incident. Hazur again asked, "What did Allah say?" And he narrated it the third time. After the third time, he thought maybe Hazur cannot hear him. And he looked up in the face of Hazur, at the face of Hazur, and Hazur had tears coming from his eyes. He said, "Really? God referred to me as his servant?" And while leaving the office, Hazur gave him his turban, his pants and shirt. And he asked Hazur, "Do you give this to every person that comes to meet you?" Hazur said, "Not everybody. Most of the people come here on their own. But you have come because God has sent you." My dear brothers, who was this servant of God, who God refers to as my servant, Abdi? Hazrat Mirza Nasir Ahmad was born in 1909, a year after the demise of the promised Messiah ﷺ. But the promised Messiah ﷺ was foretold about his birth. In the revelation, when God revealed to him that Inna nubashiruka bi ghulamin nafilatal lak, I will bestow you with a child who will be your grandson. At another occasion, God told him that I will give you a son, a fifth son, but he'll be your grandchild. And after the demise of Hazrat Mirza Mubarak Ahmad, the son of promised Messiah, Islam, he used to tell Hazrat Amma Jan that do not worry, God will send you another alternative. And it is for this reason that Hazrat Amma Jan, the wife of the promised Messiah, Islam, was very close to Hazrat Mirza Nasir Ahmad. He used to stay with her. She did his upbringing, and she used to say, "Ye to mera Mubarak hai, he's just like my Mubarak." And even Hazrat Muslim Maud Raziallahu Anhu was told about his birth. When God told him that Deen ka Nasir, a helper of the faith, will be born. And once when Hazrat Amma Jan complained to Hazrat Muslim or Raziallahu Anhu that when you have him study the religious knowledge, he lacks in secular knowledge. He's weak in math, science. Hazrat Muslim said, Amma Jan, do not worry. One day he will leave everybody behind. You know, I have Atfal and Khudam sitting in front of me. Sometimes we're afraid of telling people about our identity. This was not the case with Hazrat Mirza Nasir Ahmad. He was proud to be an Ahmadi Muslim. And he was known for his righteousness and his piety. So much so that his friends at school used to mock him that we haven't seen your grandfather or his claims, but if you claim to be a prophet, we will follow you. Then, after returning from UK and studying in Oxford, Hazrat Muslim Raziallahu Anhu had him teach at Talimul Islam College, in addition to so many other responsibilities that he had. And at times he was not able to give enough time to his his students. So God will reveal to him the test paper that was to appear in the board exam. So he would only teach his students the questions that were to appear in the exams, and they would study those, and they were able to pass with flying colors. But this was not the only case with his college students. But even if his own children lacked in any, if they were weak in studying, God would inform Hazrat Mirza Nasir Ahmad. Once, when his child started studying for an exam at night, they thought it was too late. They thought, there's no point of studying now. He put the books away and went to sleep. Next morning, somebody knocked on the door, and they said that I'm here from your father's office, and there's a letter for you. And in that letter, Hazur Rahimahullah wrote that because of the special connection that I have with God Almighty, God has informed me about your intention of not appearing in this test. But I urge you that you do not do that. You should go do the test, and God will help you to pass this. And they were able to do the exam, and they passed. 1953, my brothers, was a very tough year for Jamaat. Anti-Ahmadiyya movements, there was so much persecution. A lot of Ahmadis, their shops were looted, and many of them had to go to prison also, including Hazrat Mirza Nasir Ahmad. But despite of what the circumstances were, the help of God was always with Hazrat Mirza Nasir Ahmad. When the police officers came to arrest him, he said that, God had already informed me that you were coming. You have come late. And when he went to the prison, the very first night, they had him in a very small cell, a dark cell. Usually those people that are to be hanged the next day, that's where they're kept. So Hazur Rahimahullah started to pray that, oh Allah, I'm not here on my own. You have sent me here. But I'm not complaining. I am happy if you're happy. But it's too hot here. So help me with this. He says that all of a sudden there was some fresh breeze that came in, as if somebody had just turned on the AC and he was able to go to sleep. Then 1965, he became the Khalifa. All of a sudden now he was the most important person on this planet. But yet he was very humble. In his very first address to the people, he said that I am weak. I'm nothing. Even a particle of dust might have more remarkable powers than I do. But I've heard that it is Allah the Almighty that appoints a Khalifa. If it is true, and indeed it is true, then neither should you and nor should I worry about this Jamaat, as God will take care of this Jamaat. And after a few days, God confirmed that in the revelation to him, that Ya Daudu inna jalna ka khalifatun fil ard, that, oh David, it is me that appoints a Khalifa on earth. 1974 came along, and this was the year that Pakistan government wanted to declare Ahmadis as non-Muslims. And obviously, Hazur, being the leader of the community, was the one that was representing Jamaat in the courts. Hazur Rahimahullah said that for 52 hours and 10 minutes, he was cross-examined by the prosecutors. And for the whole 52 hours and 10 minutes, he felt as if the God and his angels were right there to help him out. So much so that when he was being questioned about different references, he would just open up a book and the exact page will appear which was being asked. And while he was being questioned, God revealed to him, "Wase makanaka inna kafanakal mustazi." That forget about their mockery, I will take care of it. You go and expand your houses. And look how beautifully this revelation, which was originally sent to the promised Messiah Islam, was fulfilled by different Khulafa. At the end of Khilafat Thaniya, Jamaat was established in 46 countries of the world. Pre-migration to UK, Jamaat was established in 91 countries of the world. But now, by the grace of God, Jamaat is established in more than 210 countries of the world. Wase makanaka. And all the Khulafa, naturally they have so much love for people in general, but particularly for the Ahmadi Muslims. Hazrat Qudsi Salis Rahimahullah has said that during the 1974 trials, for 2 months straight, I did not get any sleep. I kept on praying for the members of the Jamaat. And then he said that sometimes I pray, "Oh my Lord, there are those who want to write to me, but are not able to for whatever reason. Oh Allah Ta'ala, accept their prayers. And oh Allah Ta'ala, there are those that never have even thought of writing to me. So whatever their problems are, please resolve their problems too." And obviously those people that went to see Hazur and asked him for prayers, they were able to see miracles happening. There was a person that came from Germany and said, "Hazur, please pray for our missionary in charge, Masool Jalmi Sahib. He does not have a child. He does not have a son." Hazur was quiet for a few moments, and he said, "Go and inform him God will bestow him with a son, and he should name him Luqman Ahmad." Masool Jalmi Sahib wrote after a few months, he said that, "Hazur, Jazakallah for your prayers, Luqman Ahmad has been born." 1980, when Hazrat Qudsi Salis Rahimahullah went to Germany to visit, there was a person who said, "Hazur, I have ache in my chest. The pain is not going away. And the doctors have said that there's no way that I'll be cured." Hazur unbuttoned his shirt and made a circle right here. And he said, "Is this where the pain is?" He said, "Yes, Hazur." He said, "Who said God can't give you cure? God will give you cure. I will pray for you." The person says, when he writes this incident, that it has been 35 to 40 years, I've never had this pain again. So my dear brothers, if we want to be those special servants of God Almighty, we have to have a living connection with this servant of God Almighty. And I also want to say that some Khuddam are sitting here and probably wondering that maybe it's too late for us to establish a connection with God Almighty and His Khalifa. Where do we get started? When we look at other people doing so well and we compare ourselves, we're thinking that maybe it's too late. It's never too late. In Hadith Qudsi, the Holy Prophet ﷺ says that God has informed me that Ana inda zanne abde bi. I become according to the comprehension level of my servant. Meaning that obviously he can never reach me. So regardless of how much we try, we can never reach God. But he lowers himself to our level. So the only expectation from us is that we try our level best and God will come and reach us there. Jazakallah.
Hazrat Mirza Tahir Ahmad rahimahullah became the fourth Khalifa of the community in 1982. This Khalifa, also a son of Hazrat Musleh Maud radiallahu anhu, possessed a vast range of qualities, including a charismatic persona that captivated millions of Ahmadis and non-Ahmadis alike, and an insatiable appetite for intellect. The Fourth Caliphate began with a blossom, with new members joining the community in record numbers. But the success came with a hefty price. A dictator who vowed to persecute Ahmadis just as the Pharaoh had persecuted the followers of Moses ﷺ, implemented an ordinance in 1984 that prohibited Ahmadis from professing their faith openly in Pakistan.
My conscience is clear by 200%.
The safety and lives of Ahmadis were in jeopardy every day, to the point that under divine guidance, the Fourth Khalifa himself had to migrate to the United Kingdom, and the Caliphate was established yet again in a new land.
जमात अहमदिया का एक मौला है और ज़मीन और आसमान का खुदा हमारा मौला है, लेकिन मैं तुम्हें बताता हूं कि तुम्हारा कोई मौला नहीं। खुदा की कसम, जब हमारा मौला हमारी मदद को आएगा तो कोई तुम्हारी मदद नहीं कर सकेगा। खुदा की तकदीर जब तुम्हें टुकड़े टुकड़े करेगी तो तुम्हारे नामो निशान मिटा दिए जाएंगे और हमेशा दुनिया तुम्हें जिल्लत और रुसवाई के साथ याद करेगी।
Back in Pakistan, there was no halting the persecution of Ahmadis. Eventually, Allah's decree prevailed, and the darkness of the brutal regime was extinguished through the light of faith, with thousands witnessing the omnipotence of God in the skies. Through a spectacular divine plan, the community witnessed innumerable successes. The Waqf-e-No scheme in 1987, the launch of MTA in 1994, which allowed the message of Ahmadiyya to spread in manners unfathomable in prior eras. The Khalifa astounded crowds wherever he visited with his famous Q&A sessions, as well as a number of literary contributions, including his magnum opus, Revelation, Rationality, Knowledge, and Truth. At the turn of the century, the community once again witnessed divine help with record number of baths in Africa and throughout the world. This Khalifa led the community into the 21st century with resounding success, as well as tremendous ambitions to propagate the message of the promised Messiah ﷺ throughout the world.
So my prayer is that Canada becomes all the world, and all the world becomes Canada.
मैं तुझसे न मांगूं तो न मांगूंगा किसी से, मैं तेरा हूँ तो मेरा खुदा है. If I don't ask of you, I won't ask of anyone ever. I am yours and you are mine, my God, my God. These are words of Hazrat Khalifatul Masih Rabi and his way of praying and talking to his God. Very, very intimate, very loving, as though one talks to his lover. And of course, every Khalifa has this their own unique way of speaking to their Lord. The couplet that I just recited before you is from a poem written by Huzur Rahimahullah for a small group of prisoners who were imprisoned because they were Ahmadi in the 1980s. And they were imprisoned obviously because they were Ahmadis. There's no fair trials in Pakistan for Ahmadis. And Huzur was so pained, so pained. He prayed with such anguish for them because he felt their pain. At one instance, Huzur Rahimahullah, he said that when they hurt you, addressing the members of the community, when they hurt you, they hurt me. And so with this pain for 10 long years, Huzur prayed for these prisoners. And eventually, God's decree came without any indication. As I mentioned, there's no fair trial in Pakistan for Ahmadis. But without any indication from the government or from the officials, suddenly Allah said to Huzur, enough. Your prayers are enough. I accept them. And these prisoners were ultimately released. And to be honest, if it wasn't for those prayers of Huzur at that time for those prisoners, I wouldn't be standing here today. Because among those prisoners was my father. And Huzur told my father that I would be born after his release. And that's exactly what happened. So this constant communication with Allah the Almighty was built upon years of building and constructing the foundations of faith that he had in his being. Even before his Khilafat, during the Khilafat of Hazrat Khalifatul Masih Salis Rahimahullah, Huzur instructed Khalifatul Masih Rabi to go to Bangladesh. There was some chaos that he had to deal with. The Jamaat was in trouble. And so Huzur Rahimahullah, he contacted the travel agencies, he tried to find a flight. And he was told that there's no flights going. And the only flight that's going to Bangladesh is full. And there are actually 20 people waiting. 20 people waiting to be seated. So he was the 21st person in line that was waiting in case a seat was vacant for him. Now Huzur at that time, he thought in his mind that there's no way. The Khalifa of God has instructed me to do something for God. There's no way that I will not board that plane. So he went to the airport. He went to the airport and he waited there amongst those other 20 people. And the announcement was made, the announcement that nobody was waiting for, that the flight has taken off and no one's going to get on that plane. Now in dismay, the people waiting, they ended up leaving. Those 20 people, they left the airport. Still Huzur was there. And he was thinking in his mind that there's no way, whether that flight has taken off or not, I will be going to Bangladesh no matter what. This is the faith he had in God. And what happened? A flight attendant came running and an announcement was made that there's one seat. One seat is available. And Huzur got on that plane and he made it to Bangladesh. These are the miraculous things that happen, everyday occurrences, but in a miraculous way in the lives of our Khulafa. We know that during the Khilafat of Hazrat Khalifatul Masih Rabi Rahimahullah, one big blessing that was gifted to the Jamaat by God was MTA. During the course of establishing MTA to what it is today, the Jamaat had to do many things, many prayers, as we were praying relentlessly, sleepless nights. There was one occasion where a senior member or board member of a satellite company, she was causing issues for Jamaat. She was becoming a hurdle for Jamaat to progress, for MTA's contracts to be finalized. And Huzur was told this, and Huzur said, I will pray on it, Allah will bless it inshallah. And Huzur prayed. And just within five days to a week, MTA got contacted by that satellite company that the woman that had been causing issues for them, she's fired, she's gone. And a more senior member of that satellite company is now dealing with their contract. And Huzur always said that whenever I prayed to Allah the Almighty, whenever I prayed for anything, whatever it was, whether it was the needs of the Jamaat or someone was in pain, I always got more. We see Khilafat manifesting grand signs, but we also have the Khalifa in our own homes and our hearts. He's a part of our family as well. And it's unlike any other world leader that we see today. Who can say that their world leaders are part of their families? Only Ahmadis can say that their Khalifa is part of their family. There was a father who was in disarray. His son had lost his faith. And he came to Huzur and he said, Huzur, my son is going down the wrong path. I don't want him to fall astray. I don't want him to go the wrong way. And Hazur felt that pain. And like I said, Hazur said that when you feel pain, then he feels pain. So he started praying, but he didn't just pray. He didn't just pray. He demonstrated that he's not just praying out of obligation, but out of love. And he went and he met that boy. He met that boy, he spoke to him. And a few days later, a few weeks later, that father contacted Hazur, rahimahullah, and he said that my son has turned a new leaf. He's become a totally different person. He's come back, and he's found his faith. That is the leader that we have in Khilafat. Now, Hazur built this relationship with Allah the Almighty throughout his life. He was always, as we say in Urdu, bechan. He was restless to be with his God. Whenever he would travel, whether it was when he lived in Pakistan or whether it was in UK, the first question he would ask when he returned to Markaz was, what's the time for prayer? When is it that I can go meet God in his home? When can I get to God's home? Even during his final days, when he was very sick, and he was aware that his sickness was preventing him from obviously performing or walking at the speed that he usually does, he was walking slower than usual. And the people around Hazur rahimahullah in those days, they saw that Hazur was getting up earlier to prepare for prayers, earlier to do wuzu. And he was going earlier to the mosque because Hazur knew that he can't walk as fast as he used to. But he never wanted to neglect that obligation of going to his God and praying to him in his home. He said, I want to go to God's home, and I will get there. There was a time during a journey in Norway, and this is how we see that he never compromised on his worship to Allah the Almighty. He never compromised on this. During a trip to Norway, he was aboard a ship, and this is in the winter. And Hazur always liked to pray in congregation because that's how God instructs us to pray. That's how we form a connection with Him. And Hazur said, "Ke ba jamaat namaz padni hai." We're going to pray in congregation. The only place to pray in congregation at that time was on the deck of the ship. The deck was wet, it was cold, it was snowy. Hazur said, "Idhar hi padni hai namaz. We're going to pray here." And that's where they prayed in congregation. He always showed up for his God. Always showed up. And then God always showed up for him too. Now, there's this timeless phrase that Hazur said that many of you will be familiar with. He said that if you love the artist, you must also love his art. If you love or you claim to love the Creator, if you claim to love God, then you must also love His creation. So we see throughout the different stories that I've narrated in his life, we see clear instances that show that Hazur loved God. But how does that translate? How does it translate to the members of the community? There was a professor from Canada, actually, who went to visit Hazur with another Ahmadi. And when he went to UK, he was speaking to different Ahmadis. At that time, Imam Atal Mujib Rashid Sahib, he was guiding him in the UK. And he was speaking to him. He got this notion that, okay, look, the members of this community love their Khalifa. They love their Khalifa a lot. And usually when we talk to somebody about Khilafat, we get emotional, or we tend to speak about our love for Khilafat, for Hazur. So now it was time for the professor to meet Hazur. So he goes into Hazur's office, and when he came out, what he says, not shocked, but it was apparent. And he said that before meeting this man, before meeting Hazur, rahimahullah, I was under the impression that the members of the community love him a lot. Now I know that the Khalifa of the Jamaat of Ahmadiyyat loves them far more than they love him. Far more. And again, this story of love between Hazur rahimahullah and the community stretches far back even before his Khilafat. Hazur in the 1960s opened up a dispensary for poor people who couldn't afford medicine. He would give them free medication. But it's strange that this dispensary was not just for medication, it was for anything anybody ever needed. More often than not, people didn't come for medicine, they just came because they knew that this man was a man of God and that he would fulfill their needs. There was an elderly woman who came once. She was in the cold and she wasn't wearing adequate clothing. Hazur saw that. She came for medicine, but Hazur gave her adequate clothing so that she could survive in the cold weather. There was another man who came and he sought a bike. He needed a bike perhaps for work or for transportation. And Hazur instructed somebody that, go and purchase this on my behalf for him in the market. When Huzur found out that there were no bikes available in the market, Huzur picked up his own bike and he gave it to him. And he said, take my bike. At the same dispensary, Huzur also met with a small child. There was a small child who came to that dispensary. He was standing there looking at Huzur. And Huzur asked him, what medicine do you need? What is your need? And he said, Huzur, I don't need any medicine. Our house is just very, very hot. And I need a fan. And Huzur took that boy to the store and he said, which fan do you want? Do you want a particular fan? And Huzur got him the exact fan. He said, I want a pedestal fan. Huzur got him that pedestal fan. This was the love that was emanating from this man of God for the community. And Huzur, as you know, as mentioned in the video previously, Huzur had to migrate from his hometown. Huzur was very attached with Rabwa. He was very attached with the Ahmadis there, his friends, the people he grew up with, the members of the community as Khalifa. He was very connected to them. That was his home. But he was forced to be disconnected from that physically. And it was the last night before he was supposed to leave Pakistan for Rabwa, Pakistan for UK. And he gathered everybody in the mosque after the evening prayer, and he instructed that everybody should remain seated. Now the Ahmadis at that time, they thought that perhaps Huzur was going to tell them something, talk about something. But Huzur, when the Ahmadis came, Huzur said that I have not asked you to sit because I wish to address you. I only wish to see you. Because my eyes are comforted by your sight. I swear by God that I love you all more than a mother loves her child. This was the love that the Khalifa had. If they hurt you, they hurt me. Huzur on one occasion said that my love and my restlessness for the Jamaat is like a water drop that is vaporized and suffers on red hot metal. You know when you put water on metal that is red because of heat, it suffers on that. That is the suffering that the Khalifa has for his community. Now perhaps one of the greatest miracles that we've seen during the life of Hazrat Khalifatul Masih Rabi rahimahullah is his prayer duel against Ziaul Haq, who was the dictator of Pakistan in the 70s and 80s. And for those of you who don't know what a prayer duel is, it is when a man of God is either challenged or challenges the enemies of God to pray. And whoever is the truthful one, they will be saved, and whoever is the liar will be obliterated, will be destroyed. So there came a point in Pakistan where Ziaul Haq made it impossible for Ahmadis to live there. It was because of him and because of the laws that he was instating that Huzur had to ultimately leave Pakistan. And so Huzur said that, look, you're exceeding all bounds. You're exceeding the bounds now, you're breaking families, you're ruining livelihoods. You're making it impossible for Ahmadis to breathe in Pakistan. So now, if you don't stop, God is going to stop you with His own hands. God is going to come down and destroy you. And Huzur said, use all the power. Usually a prayer duel is between individuals. Huzur said to him, use all the power of the Maulvis in Pakistan, these Maulvis who claim to be connected to God, these Maulvis who claim to be men of God, use them, ask them to pray for you. And Huzur's exact words, you heard his exact words in the video before me. He said, by the grace of God, the Ahmadiyya community has a guardian. Our guardian is the God of the heavens and the earth. You have no guardian. When our God will come to our help, you will be torn apart into pieces. And thereafter the world will only remember you with disgrace and humiliation. Now how strange is God's love for His men, for His loved ones. The same way that Allah chooses to protect His loved ones is the same way to humiliate the enemies, is how He chooses to destroy them. If you look back in history, look at Moses alayhi salam. How was he protected? He was protected through water. The same water that protected Moses is the same water that destroyed the Pharaoh. That is how you humiliate it, because God is trying to show the enemies, they think that they have power. They have no power. They have no guardian. God is in control. So when God decided to save the Khalifa, He saved him by way of airplane. Huzur in broad daylight, not in hiding, left Pakistan, without any, sneaking around or anything like that, in broad daylight in front of everyone, all through legal means, left Pakistan by way of airplane. In 1988, Huzur gave Zia his final warning. He said, look, now God's wrath is going to descend upon you. You're about to be destroyed. And remember Huzur's words, torn into pieces. 5 days after that, 5 or 6 days after that, news channels were flooding. And it said that Zia boarded a plane and he was torn apart into pieces. Not a piece of him remained. And we don't remember him today. This is the power that Khilafat carries. This is the power that we witnessed during the time of Hazrat Khalifatul Masih Rabi's time. And I invite you that if you want to ever witness God, if you want to start your journey with God and you haven't yet, if you want to make God a part of your life, then look no further than Khilafat Ahmadiyya.
أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد عبده ورسوله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله आज मैं मसरूर के हाथ पर बैत करके जमात अहमदिया मुस्लिमा में दाखिल होता हूँ मेरा पुख्ता और कामिल ईमान है कि हज़रत मोहम्मद रसूलुल्लाह
तेरा फूल फूल चेहरा मैं सदा बहार देखूं वो घड़ी कभी ना आए तुझे बेकरार देखूं. Stepping into perhaps the most pivotal century in human history, the Jamaat faced unprecedented challenges. Despite technology being at its peak and the world connected in ways never witnessed before, morals are at an all-time low. Sins are laid bare today, and they are normalized instead of frowned upon. God granted the Jamaat a leader who continues to draw the world's attention to absolute justice when it needs it the most. With the passing of the Fourth Khalifa, Hazrat Mirza Masroor Ahmad Ayyadahullah was elected the Fifth Khalifa of the community in 2003. He is a shining beacon of guidance for a world steeped in darkness.
हमें हर दुख अल्लाह ताला की राह में उठाने के लिए तैयार होना चाहिए और किसी भी मुश्किल या मुसीबत के वक्त मुसीबत के पैदा होने की सूरत में अल्लाह ताला से मुंह नहीं फेरना.
Throughout his tenure, he visited many parts of the world, from distant islands to the world's most major countries. He addressed world leaders in various parliaments and cabinets with one simple message: peace and justice. He is a leader that visits every country in his mind before he sleeps, praying for Ahmadis across the world. He makes our pain his own pain, and our happiness too. He brightens our homes by smiling through the screen and lovingly guides us towards God and goodness. He is our light, our leader, our beloved Khalifa, our Huzur. Be it his weekly Friday sermons, his countless physical or virtual mulaqats, or his articulate addresses at Jalsa Salana, the Khalifa has guided his community with special prayers and new endeavors, spreading the message of Islam Ahmadiyyat far and wide, from the Micronesian islands to Hawaii to Indonesia and beyond. The Jamaat has continued to grow and flourish under the guidance of his leadership. Each and every one of us has a connection with Huzur Ayyadahullah, our personal relationship, and he is ever supported by Allah the Almighty, and we are a witness to that promise. Inni ma'aka, ya Masroor. I am with you, O Masroor.
وَإِذَا سَأَلَكَ عِبَادِي أَنِّي فَإِنِّي قَرِيبٌ أُجِيبُ دَعْوَةَ دَاعِي إِذَا دَعَانِ. Chapter 2, verse 187 of the Holy Quran, Allah talks about that beloved relationship He has with His true servants. Hazrat Muslim Maud Raziyallahu anhu, he mentions regarding this verse that the word ibadi, meaning my servants, meaning the translation of the verse, and when my servants ask thee about me, say I am near, I answer this prayer of the supplicant when he prays to me. Hazrat Muslim Maud Raziyallahu anhu, he explains that the word ibadi here, meaning my servants, does not actually apply to everyone. It specifically applies to those individuals who have unshakable faith in Allah Ta'ala and also fulfill the commandments of Allah Ta'ala. The higher the faith in Allah and fulfilling the commandments of Allah, the higher the experiences of the acceptance of prayer. My dear brothers, Hazrat Khalifatul Masih Khamis Ayyadullah Ta'ala bin Nasr al-Aziz is that unique individual appointed by Allah Ta'ala on earth who has unshakable, extraordinary faith in Allah and also fulfilling the commandments of Allah. And the result is extraordinary experiences of the acceptance of prayer. Many of us have witnessed the acceptance of prayers through Hazur, and I wanted to share with you some of these unique incidents that we see throughout the world from different members of the Jamaat regardless of their cultural backgrounds. There is one incident of a man from Bulgaria. He says that him, his wife, and children visited Jalsa Salana, Germany. And after converting to Islam Ahmadiyyat, he mentioned to his wife that she should also look into Islam Ahmadiyyat. They had 3 daughters and she had a condition. She said, I will accept Ahmadiyyat if Allah Ta'ala blesses me with a son. The following year, they again went to Jalsa Salana, but this time they had the blessed opportunity of actually meeting Hazur Anwar Ayyadullah Ta'ala bin Nasr al-Aziz. And in this mulaqat, she asked Hazur, by that time she was expecting in 2 months. She asked Hazur if he could please bless her child with a name. And Hazur named the child Jahid, which is a baby boy's name. Now, interestingly, after this mulaqat, this lady, she told her local missionary that, do you know, according to the doctors, I'm actually expecting a baby girl. And she had a desire to go back to Hazur and change that name of Jahid to a baby girl's name. Their local missionary said, he said, look, your condition was that if you want to accept Ahmadiyyat, that Allah bless you with a baby boy. And Hazur Anwar gave you this blessed news of a baby boy and that you would name him Jahid. And he told her, rest assured, that if Hazur has mentioned this, that you will be blessed with a baby boy, rest assured that Allah will bless you with a baby boy. So my dear brothers, on one hand, the doctors and science and technology is saying that, look, you're expecting a baby girl. And on the other hand, the Khalifa of Allah is saying that you will be blessed with a baby boy and you will name him Jahid. After 2 months, my dear brothers, that family was blessed with a baby boy. And she named him Jahid, despite what the doctors and medical science was saying. And not only that, but she converted to Islam Ahmadiyyat after this incident. And the following year, they went back to Hazur and met him. And she was so excited and happy, and she introduced baby Jahid to Hazur as a testament that he was born through your prayers. My dear brothers, you know, in 2004, there was a devastating tsunami. An earthquake had taken place off the coast of Indonesia. And it was so mighty and powerful that it caused such a devastating tsunami that tsunami affected 14 countries. Do you know how many people died? Over 227,000 people lost their lives within the span of a few minutes. December 26, 2004. This was such a devastating natural disaster that many of us who are alive today, it's probably one of the most extreme ones that we have ever seen or heard about in our lifetime. 2 years later, in 2006, there was a very similar earthquake that also took place in the Pacific Ocean. And right away, tsunami warnings started going out to different countries. And 2 countries in particular received those tsunami warnings. On May 4th, 2006, one of them was the island of Fiji in New Zealand. Dear brothers, do you know who was in Fiji at that time on May 4th, 2006? It was this blessed servant of Allah Ta'ala, Hazur Anwar, was doing his tour of the Far East countries. And actually, when the earthquake happened, he was just preparing himself to lead the Fajr prayer. And when he made his way to the mosque, he started getting reports from the local Jamaat members, extreme worry and fear because that incident of 2004, where almost 250,000 people lost their lives from a tsunami, was terrifying, and it was still fresh in people's mind. And when Hazur got these, reports of a tsunami possibly hitting Fiji, the members of the Jamaat testified that Hazur led the prayers and extended his prostrations very long in prayers to Allah Almighty. After leading the Fajr prayer, we know many times Hazur goes quickly back to his tasks, whatever his busy schedule. But instead of going back, he looked at the congregation and addressed them. And he said, "Do not worry. Allah will bestow His blessings upon us. Nothing will happen." Dear brothers, within 2.5 hours, news started going all over that the tsunami had diminished and that there was no sign of it, and not one single person was injured or killed from this devastating earthquake, although it was a very similar size to the one off the coast of Indonesia 2 years before, where hundreds and thousands of people had lost their lives. Dear brothers, you know the verse that I had quoted in the beginning. "And when my servants ask thee about me, say I am near, I answer the prayer of the supplicant." The commentary of this verse, the promised Messiah ﷺ, says something very interesting. He says that when one attains the highest level of purity and becomes sinless, he attains such a level of relationship, such a high level of relationship with Allah Ta'ala, that he reaches a level where he does not even have to ask Allah for anything. Rather, Allah fulfills the desires of his heart without him or her even having to ask him. My dear brothers, we also witness this level of relationship in Hazur Anwar. In 2004, Hazur was traveling to the African countries, West Africa, and he had just finished his tour from Nigeria and went to the country of Benin in West Africa. When he arrived there, he was getting ready to lead the Asr prayer. Now, many of you sitting here, I think majority of you may not have had the experience of traveling to Africa, but myself and a few of our missionaries, Hazur sends us in these areas for our training. And we have witnessed the rainy season in West Africa is something that cannot even be compared to what the type of rain that we see here. It is so powerful that weeks upon weeks or even months at a time, it continuously rains, and the downpour is so strong that I'm telling you that we have not witnessed that type of rain here. And even if the rain diminishes, it is so cloudy throughout the rainy season. So when Hazur was about to lead the prayer, Amir Saab, the national Amir Saab, he had reported to him that, it's very difficult to organize everyone outside in the marquees. It's almost impossible because of, the downpour of the rain is so powerful and strong. You know what Hazur did? Hazur came outside, looked at the sky, and he said, "Inshallah, we will pray in 10 minutes. That's all he said, and he went back inside. The members of that Jamaat in that West African nation, they testify that we witnessed Hazur say this within, he said 10 minutes. Allah Ta'ala had a different plan. People testify and bear witness that within 3 minutes, it stopped raining, and also the sky cleared up, and the sun started, shining through the clear skies. And people of that country say this is a miracle that we do not witness, especially in rainy seasons. My dear brothers, I'm sharing with you some of the incidents of the relationship Hazur has with Allah Ta'ala and the acceptance of prayer. But his relationship is not just limited to that. Rather, his relationship also, is exemplified with the love and compassion he has with members of the Jamaat. The Holy Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said that the best leaders amongst you are those whom you love and they love you, and who pray for you and you pray for them. And we see these words of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ exemplified in the character of Hazur Anwar. There are so many incidents and experiences of members of the Jamaat with the love and compassion Hazur has towards them, and I'll quickly share with you a couple that really touched me. After Jamia, when the students graduate, Hazur invites the classes for their convocation. Convocation is like their graduation. And one of our Murabbis in the US, Murabbi Umar Nair Sahib, he narrates that I had gone to England for my convocation with my classmates. And part of that celebration, my mother from the United States, she was also coming to visit. And he says that I went to go pick her up from the airport, and while I was picking her up on the way to the guest house, as a loving mother sometimes does, she mentioned that, I'm going to need some cash from you. I need 200 pounds so I could take care of some of the things that, do a little bit of shopping. And Umar Nair, he says that, I just said, no problem, mother. I'll take care of that. But the truth is, he says that I was in no position at all to financially help my mother at that point in time. And while he was thinking about this, he says that I dropped off my mother at the guest house. And when I reached back to where him and the other students were staying, he says that we all received an envelope from Hazur. And he says that we all thought it was a letter or something, but rather it was a gift of money. And I'll let all of you guess how much money was in that envelope. It was exactly 200 pounds. And this is the way Hazur has love for, members of the Jamaat, but also we see that love translates into helping members of the Jamaat also fulfill their wishes and desires. In another incident, after graduation, or after the Jamia students finish and complete their studies, Hazur invites them for training in Islamabad. And in one of these mulaqats, Hazur noticed that one of the new graduates, his shoes were very worn out. And Hazur pointed this out in a very, relaxed way and, joking with him that I think it's time that you buy a new pair of shoes. There's thread coming out of your shoes. They're worn out. You need new shoes now. Dear brothers, you know how many letters Hazur gets? Thousands upon thousands of letters daily. Hundreds of meetings throughout the week. He's worried about the severe persecution of members of the Jamaat worldwide, staying in touch with different Jamaats, overlooking the building of new construction and mosque and properties. Within 1 week of this incident, that young man says that I was shocked that Hazur actually gifted him a pair of shoes. Many of us as parents, it's so easy to look over minute details of our own children. And you have a Khalifa of a worldwide community of millions of Ahmadi Muslims and taking minute, detailed care of people and members of the Jamaat. My dear brothers, on May 26th, 1908, in Lahore, Pakistan, the promised Messiah ﷺ passed away. And although many members of the Jamaat were mourning, extremely sad at the loss and demise of the promised Messiah ﷺ, do you know that there were actually groups of people laughing, happy, mocking, and ridiculing the Jamaat because of their hatred and persecution against the Jamaat? Dear brothers, one of the reasons that they were so happy? It's because they actually thought that this was the end of the Ahmadiyya Muslim Jamaat, and they were celebrating that this is the end of the Ahmadiyya Muslim Jamaat. Dear brothers, little did they know in his book Al-Wasiyat, the promised Messiah ﷺ had made it clear that I have come only to sow the seed. And this seed will grow after my death when that second manifestation comes in the form of Khilafat. You know, in chapter 24, verse 56, Allah talks about Khilafat and says, وَلَا يُمَكِّنَنَّ لَهُمْ دِينَهُمُ الَّذِي ارْتَضَىٰ لَهُمْ. And He will surely establish for them their religion that He has chosen for them. In other words, through Khilafat, Allah Ta'ala promised the expansion of the Muslim Ummah under the leadership of Khilafat. And we see today, those same people that used to laugh, they see today that the Jamaat has spread over 200 countries of the world. Translations of the Holy Quran in different languages are spread worldwide. New missions, imams, and missionaries are being prepared to go worldwide to, instill the flag of Islam Ahmadiyyat worldwide. Even here in Canada, if you go to 9570 River Road, Delta, BC, you see a magnificent mosque called Baitur Rahman Mosque, built by members of the Jamaat through the guidance of Khilafat. If you go to 54th Avenue, Northeast Calgary, you see the largest place of worship in the form of a mosque built by the Ahmadiyya Muslim Jamaat. And you go through Regina and Saskatoon, you see the same thing. You go to here, Ontario, and Sandalwood intersection in Brampton, you see the beautiful Mubarak Mosque. You come here, 10610 Jane Street, you see Baitul Islam Mosque. My dear brothers, Allah is blessing a spiritual empire quietly, and people don't even notice, through the institution of Khilafat. So those people that used to laugh, trust me, they're not laughing anymore. They're not ridiculing like they used to, because they did not expect that through Khilafat, the Jamaat would expand to this level. So in the end, my dear brothers, may Allah enable us to also gain the nearness of Allah by following these footsteps and the guidance of Hazrat Khalifa Masih. Wa akhira da'wana and alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Jazakallah.
Says,
अल्लाह ताला ने जो वादे फरमाए हैं वो पूरे होने वाले हैं और ज़मीन व आसमान टल सकते हैं, लेकिन खुदाई वादों को पूरा होने से कोई नहीं रोक सकता। बहरहाल इस बात की वजाहत कि ये निज़ाम खिलाफत जारी रहने वाला निज़ाम है, इस बारे में हज़रत मसीह मौला इस्लाम फरमाते हैं, सो ए अज़ीज़ो, जमात को ख़त्म करते हुए, ए अज़ीज़ो, जबकि कदीम से सुन्नतुल्लाह यही है कि खुदा ताला दो कुदरतें दिखलाता है।
as we, a divine community, traverse the rivers of time in this arc that is Khilafat, we also have a huge responsibility. Complete obedience, love, and most importantly, prayers. We owe so much to God for blessing us with this fortress of comfort, peace, and prosperity. And this blessing is here to stay. Our beloved Imam Hazrat Khalifatul Masih al-Khamis, Ayyadahullahu ta'ala bi Nasrihil Aziz, says,
अल्लाह ताला ने जो वादे फरमाए हैं वो पूरे होने वाले हैं और ज़मीन व आसमान टल सकते हैं, लेकिन खुदाई वादों को पूरा होने से कोई नहीं रोक सकता। बहरहाल इस बात की वजाहत कि ये निज़ाम खिलाफत जारी रहने वाला निज़ाम है, इस बारे में हज़रत मसीह मौला इस्लाम फरमाते हैं, सो ए अज़ीज़ो, जमात को ख़त्म करते हुए, ए अज़ीज़ो, जबकि कदीम से सुन्नतुल्लाह यही है कि खुदा ताला दो कुदरतें दिखलाता है, ता मुखालफों की दो झूठी खुशियों को पामाल करके दिखलावे। सो अब मुमकिन नहीं है कि खुदा ताला अपनी कदीम सुन्नत को तर्क कर देवे। इसलिए तुम मेरी इस बात से जो मैंने तुम्हारे सामने पास बयान की गमगीन मत हो, यानी अपनी वफ़ात की खबर जो दी, और तुम्हारे दिल परेशान ना हो जाएं, क्योंकि तुम्हारे लिए दूसरी कुदरत का देखना भी ज़रूरी है और उसका आना तुम्हारे लिए बेहतर है, क्योंकि वो दायमी है, जिसका सिलसिला क़यामत तक मुनक़ते नहीं होगा और वो दूसरी कुदरत नहीं आ सकती जब तक मैं न जाऊं। लेकिन मैं जब जाऊंगा तो फिर खुदा उस दूसरी कुदरत को तुम्हारे लिए भेज देगा जो हमेशा तुम्हारे साथ रहेगी, जैसा कि खुदा का बराहीन अहमदिया में वादा है। बस आपकी ये अल्फाज कि खुदा ताला का ये वादा है और वो दूसरी कुदरत यानी खिलाफत तुम में क़यामत तक कायम रहेगी। ऐसे लोग हमेशा पैदा होते रहेंगे जो खिलाफत अहमदिया की हिफाजत करने वाले होंगे। बस खुशकिस्मत हैं हम में से वो लोग जो खिलाफत अहमदिया के साथ हमेशा जुड़े रहें और अपनी नस्लों को भी इसकी तलकीन करते रहें। और बदकिस्मत हैं वो जो खिलाफत अहमदिया को किसी दौर तक महदूद करना चाहते हैं या ये सोच रखते हैं। ऐसे लोग हमेशा की तरह नाकामी और नामुरादी देखेंगे।
खिलाफत क्या है, एक फज़ल-ए अज़ीम रब रहमा है।
National Amir Sahib. Actually, he had to come today and lead the silent prayer and made some. He had to make some remarks, but he's not feeling well. May Allah grant him complete and speedy recovery, and that is why he has instructed me to represent him today in this Jalsa Khilafat. So we have seen and we have heard many incidents, and these Jalsajat, they are held only for one purpose, and that purpose is that that should strengthen our relationship, our belief in Allah the Almighty and the Khilafat, which has actually been established by Allah the Almighty. And after watching today's program, after experiencing today's program while sitting with all of you here, I can see and I can feel that it has certainly uplifted my spirits. It has certainly strengthened my belief in Allah and the divine Khilafat, that Khalifa is the one who is actually appointed by Allah the Almighty. We are going through the time, the great time, the historical time of Hazrat Khalifatul Masih al-Khamis ayyadahullah ta'ala bin Aziz. And whatever incidents and the character traits that you have heard about different khulafa, they are found in Hazrat Khalifatul Masih Khamis ayyadahullah ta'ala bin Aziz as well. For example, care and love for the members of the community, There are many incidents. One of them that I can think of is that someone visited Huzur Anwar bin Aziz in his office, and there was a pile of letters within a file, and that person, he wanted to make some space, so he took that file from that table, for example, or the chair, I do not remember that correctly, and he started to put it down on the ground. And Huzur was standing there or sitting there, and Huzur said, no, do not put them on the ground, because these are not letters. This is my heart. So that is the kind of love that Huzur Anwar bin Aziz has with the members of the community. Having been served in Pakistan, and as we are sitting in the Jalsa Khilafat, which is actually being held by Khudamul Ahmadiyya. So when I was serving in Khudamul Ahmadiyya, Pakistan, on Fridays, you know that after the terrorist attacks, especially in Lahore, we used to send Huzur the report that every Friday that the Friday prayers have been offered everywhere in Pakistan safely. And we were given this message by Private Secretary Sahib as well, that Huzur anxiously waits for this report and keeps praying for all of us. And once the report is given to him from all over Pakistan through Khudamul Ahmadiyya and through Amur-e-Amma, that all the prayers have been offered safely and the members, they have reached safely their homes, that is what relaxes Huzur. So that is the kind of love that Khalifa has, and this love is actually the sign that Khalifa is appointed by Allah the Almighty. Only yesterday, I was sitting with one of my Murabi brother, and he told me an incident about the acceptance of his prayers, Huzur's prayers, and the relationships, that strong strong relationship that Huzur Anwar has with Allah the Almighty. He said that I was studying in Jamia Ahmadiyya, Canada, and I was not a very good student in terms of studies. I was finding it hard for me to continue my studies. Every year I would fail 1 or 2 subjects, and I would have to appear in the supplementary exams. And he said that after 3 or 4 years in my Jamia Ahmadiyya, I went to meet Huzur Anwar bin Aziz with my family. And when we were sitting there, Huzur said, what is your name? He told his name to Huzur Anwar bin Aziz. He said, okay, you are that person? And he was astonished that how did Huzur recognize me? And Huzur said, you must be thinking that how did I recognize you? And that person, that Murbi Sahib, who was a student of Jamia Ahmadiyya, said, yes, Huzur, I was thinking the same. And Huzur said, pick up that file. And he picked up that file and he said, open it. And he opened that, and there were forms with the pictures of the students of Jamia Ahmadiyya in that file. He said, find out yours. He did find out his. And he said, you know, that every day I look at these pictures and I pray for all of you. And he said that, how's your studies going on? And of course, Murabi Sahib told the truth that Huzur studies is not going good and I'm really struggling. Huzur said that you should work hard then. He said, I've been trying to work hard. I've done everything, but still, I'm not good at studies. Huzur said, okay, this is the case, then come here. And he asked him to come and sit beside him while he was sitting on the chair. And he said that, take your cap off. And he took his cap off and put his hand on his head and started praying for him. He said, I do not know, I actually do not know that how much time I did spend there. I thought that it was 15 to 20 minutes, but my brother who was sitting there also with me, because of a family mulaqat, he said, no, it was less time, but he prayed for me. And after he had completed his prayer, he said, okay, we get up now, inshallah ta'ala, you will be succeeded. He said, I came back, and I don't know what happened. There was a total change. The person who would not pass every year without a supplementary exam started standing first in his class. So these are the real incidents that all of us we have. The thing is, or the lesson to learn is, that when we have this ni'mat-e-uzma, this blessing of Allah the Almighty among us, then we should have a strong relationship with Him. And for that, we should pray for Him, we should write to Him, and we try to do everything that we can, listen to Him, act upon His advices, so that we can have that relationship with Him. May Allah the Almighty enable all of us to actually recognize this blessing of Allah, the great blessing of Allah the Almighty, and have that strong connection with Khilafat. Ameen, Allahumma Ameen. Now I invite all of you to please join me in the silent prayer. Aaiye dua kar lein. Ameen, Allahumma Ameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakumullah.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullah. On behalf of Majlis Khudam Ahmadiyya Canada, we would like to thank you for participating in this Jalsa Khilafat. Just a couple of announcements. One is that if you haven't yet registered, please do register before leaving. It really helps